Hi, I'm Jim Munro and this is SunSpeed. The Formula 1 season is 2 races old and Jenson Button is the man to catch. Jenson has shown some brains to go with his Brawn to pick up wins in Australia and Malaysia, and now China is upon us. But the big question is, what has happened to McLaren and Ferrari? Well, the man to answer that question is the voice of motorsport for The Sun, Chris Hockley. Chris, what on earth is going on?
Well, that's astonishing, isn't it, Jim? We're going to the 3rd race of the season. McLaren have got 1 point on the board. Ferrari have got none at all. Their worst start to the Formula 1 season since 1992, 17 long years ago. If there's one thing that links the two, McLaren and Ferrari, I think the word I would use is arrogance. I think they're probably thinking that they've been dominating the sport for years, and they have some divine right to carry on. But of course a lot of the other teams have done a lot of big catching up, and McLaren and Ferrari have both been caught with their pants down.
Right. Well, you mentioned that term arrogance. The recriminations seem to have started already. If we could perhaps deal with them separately. McLaren, the public action that we've seen is the departure of Dave Ryan. What do you make of that? What's behind that?
Well, the interesting thing there, Jim, is what the specialist press have been making of that, because these are guys who know every member of the team and they've known them since the year dot, and they're very, very upset that Dave Ryan has carried the can for this all by himself. Yeah. Dave Ryan has been a loyal employee of McLaren for years, and they're very sad and upset that he's gone and has taken the whole rap himself.
Well, indeed, Ryan wasn't alone in that stewards' inquiry. There was a certain chap by the name of Lewis Hamilton involved too. What are we to make of Lewis and his previously untarnished reputation? Where has this left him?
Well, Lewis now goes from hero to zero, doesn't he? It's an astonishing reversal of fortune. And Lewis really needs to kind of look at himself now, because he was told to lie in the stewards' hearing after the Australian Grand Prix by his team. Now, Jim, you and I both work for The Sun. We both have to follow orders from our employer. But I ask you, would we ever lie on their behalf?
Well, there's no way that we'd be foolish enough to do that, Chris.
So I think Lewis has to look at himself, look at his actions. He's very well aware of what's happened, and I'm sure feels very, very strongly about it. Even rumours surfacing that he might even leave McLaren. He's been with them, as you know, since he was a kid, since he was knee-high to a grasshopper. Has a tremendous loyalty to Ron Dennis, the boss of McLaren, who he regards as a second father. And yet this incident has made him start to think about whether he might be better off elsewhere, because he simply cannot allow this sort of behaviour to carry on.
Well, yeah, as we said, he's previously the good boy of motor racing, and this storm that he's been caught up in, and I don't just mean the weather in Malaysia, could that well be the end of McLaren and Hamilton together?
My own feeling is probably not. I think they'll weather the storm, as you call it. But there's no doubt that it's tarnished the reputation of both team again after the Spygate scandal. They're now involved in the Ligate scandal, and particularly Lewis, who goes into the Chinese Grand Prix with a massive cloud above his head.
Okay, we'll try and keep away from the weather. Let's turn to the boys in red, Ferrari. There's an old friend there, Michael Schumacher, who seems to be bearing the brunt of what's gone wrong there. Can you enlighten us there?
There's an amazing story developing from this. Schumacher is a so-called part-time advisor to Ferrari, whatever that means. Basically, he's on the pit wall with the managers during the races, and he is taking the blame for the shocking call at the Malaysian Grand Prix, where they brought Kimi Raikkonen in for wet tyres and sent him out on a dry track. And of course he rooted the tyres in a few laps, and that was the end of his race. Now, the word from Maranello is that Schumacher's being blamed for this. It was apparently his call, and he's just not going to be on that pit wall in China, and nor is he going to be on the pit wall in the following race in Bahrain.
So they've actually kicked him off?
Certainly seems to have been sidelined, along with 1 or 2 other members of the team, actually. The team manager is going to remain at the factory for the next race, and Chris Dyer, the race engineer, is going to take over at the circuit. So a massive shake-up at Maranello.
Ferrari have made a series of errors though, Chris. It's not just down to Michael Schumacher. What else has been going on?
Well, the biggest one in my book, which goes back to what I was saying earlier, Jim, about the arrogance of the team, is how they kept Massa in the garage during qualifying, assuming this time in qualifying 1 would be fast enough to get him through to qualifying 2.
Yeah.
And of course it wasn't, and it ruined his whole weekend. I mean, what were they playing at? I just don't get it.
Right. OK, well, let's look at the race itself. The weather, we're told, is going to be better in China than it was in Malaysia, so it should be a dry race. Who do you fancy for the big one?
Well, it's hard to look past Jenson again in the Brawn, isn't it? That car is so good, head and shoulders above anything else at the moment. The thing is, can Jenson actually string a hat-trick of victories together? Maybe he can, but I tell you what, this weekend, I think Rubens Barrichello, his teammate, might come good. He's been very fast as well this year, had a couple of rough rubs of the green, and put your money on Rubens this weekend, Jim.
So Rubens outside bet?
Well, not so much outside bet, I think it'd be pretty short.
OK, thanks once again, Hockers, for those insights. And don't forget, you can follow every twist and turn, every pit stop and every lap time by using the Sun's exciting new race centre. And you can find that at thesun.co.uk/motorsport. And don't forget to catch us next time as we preview what's going on in the world of Formula 1.